And so, it begins. Dark were the skies, and chill was the wind, as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. The date today is the 1st of January, 2010. It is 8 p.m. GMT. It is 3 p.m. EST. In other places, it is other times. And you are listening to the best WoW show of 2010 so far. Only WoW show of 2010 so far. That's not the point! There is no point in having any other WoW shows now, because you see, Blue Please has come on the air, and you're never going to beat it, you're never going to top it, so why bother? That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Such a mass extinction of basically every WoW podcast on the planet. I would celebrate. I'd maybe cry a little. Tears of joy, of course. Tears of joy. What have I got coming up for you in the show today? Wonderful things, folks. Wonderful things. We've got Nubcake News. We've got Ask the Murloc. We've got some content. I'm going to be talking. I heard that you like that. In fact, I heard that the show is designed for that specifically. Am I correct? Perhaps I'm mistaken. Maybe it's the drink. There is a possibility of drinking today, I think. It's New Year's Day. You can do whatever the hell you want. I've also got some illusion of choice. However, I'm going to change things around a little bit. Because this is the illusion of choice. Ah! See, turned the tables. Unexpected. Crept up from you from the side. You are flanked. Surprised. Caught out of position. It's the illusion of choice. In this illusion of choice, I will pick the topic, and then you will answer it. Shock horror. Then next week we'll do the illusion of choice, which goes something like this. That's a lot of windows. Shall I tell you what it is? Probably for the best idea. I would like your emails throughout the show for the illusion of choice. And the subject that I would like you to talk about is this. Tell me about your worst experiences so far with the random dungeon system. Oh god, why? I had a terrible experience yesterday, in fact. It wasn't the day before, whatever. It involved a warrior. Now, I'm used to seeing some pretty terrible players in the random dungeon system. Really, really bad. But I don't think I can top a warrior doing 37 DPS in Azul Narub. No, I'm deadly serious, 37. You know the amusing thing is? You know the really hilarious thing is? He wasn't even wielding like a level 1 weapon. And I'm pretty sure you could get much higher than that with a level 1 weapon. He was wearing this item level 179 blue sword, right? Two-handed sword. It's not great, but it'll do. 37 DPS. You have to try really, really hard. And no, I'm not talking about 3.7k. No, or 3,700. 37. 37. No, I'm serious. I am completely serious. How do you do that? Bearing in mind that I can get like 350 to 400 DPS with my wand, how exactly do you do 37 DPS? Well, I found out, as it happens, that said person was training weapon skills in our Agile Narub group. Training weapon skills. It beggars belief that someone could think that this is acceptable. And for one thing, why the hell does a level 80 warrior not have any weapon skill in two-handed swords? How do you even do that? I accidentally have more skill in two-handed swords, and I'm a mage! That should terrify you. You've got to wonder what goes through the heads of some people. Assuming anything goes through their heads whatsoever. I would assume that common sense and knowledge goes in one ear and out the other, and that's the only thing that ever goes through their heads. Tell you what I'd like to put through their heads, a damn brick. Ugh. It's disgraceful. How could someone possibly exist that is that bloody stupid? Funny enough, it was the same group that after we kicked that guy, the tank went AFK during the Haraxus pull. You know the big spider thing? I think it's called Haraxus or something like that? You know how you can despawn all the mobs, and then you run through, and then you fight Haraxus, DPS her down really fast, and then go down there, save about 4 minutes? Yeah, tank goes AFK halfway through that. So what happens when the tank goes AFK, folks? Oh look, the mobs have come back! Oh, God. Sadly, the random group system does not account for player stupidity. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the show. No doubt. Oh. I had a stiff drink or 10 after that, I tell you. Without further ado, it's time for this.
That sounds like it's mail time. Here's the mail.
It never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, it is mail time. It is the time where I read the mail. And over the past couple of weeks, I've got quite a lot of it. So I better start off straight away. Here's one. It's from Joseph Brewer. He says this. Hey, TB, I have really enjoyed the new LFG system, and I've actually run across many an epic player. In fact, once logged on just to do my Frost Badge daily dungeon, me, a healer, and a tank and 2 DPS just clicked. What was to be 1 dungeon turned into 10, we even joined Vent and chatted. The thing is, though, we're on different realms. We've been trying to figure out if there is a way to cross-realm queue to get together. Do you think that Blizzard Activision will ever make it possible to work together cross-realm? Now, as I recall, that's already a possibility. It's not something you can do right now, but they did say they were planning it. I'm almost 100% certain, at any rate, that that is what they were planning. So, yeah, that's probably going to come in the near future. Is there any... I don't know, it's funny that. It's one of those rare instances where you see Blizzard doing something for the good of the players instead of for the good of their pocketbook. Now, you know, of course, that there's a lot of money comes in from faction transfers and server transfers and realm changing and race changing and all that other nonsense that's going to be coming. Now, if Blizzard were really just after the money, then they would never implement any kind of cross-realm queuing system. I mean, if you want to play with your friends, you better either go roll on there or transfer over. There's $15 or $20 or whatever it costs in Blizzard's pocket. Good way to make a little bit extra cash on the side, right? Well, it's not really beneficial to the players, is it? It's nice to have the option. I think it's too expensive. And the faction transfer is absurdly expensive. And the fact that you... Let me think. I'm trying to remember how much exactly it costs. Something like 40 or 45 euros to do a server transfer and a faction transfer. That's an absolute disgraceful rip-off. I mean, for that price, I can buy a brand new 360 or PS3 game. For that price, I can buy like 20 Steam games on the Steam sale. So don't tell me that doing a simple switch of data is worth that. As far as I'm aware, there's not even any manual interaction with the system whatsoever. I know for a fact I've had a server transfer done in under 10 minutes. So I'm pretty sure that that was not done manually. It's a fully automated system. Sure, there's a little bit of development time going into that, but it's definitely not worth what the cost of it. So it's nice to see that they are implementing this. As to whether or not it will come in Wrath, who knows? It might end up being something along the lines of Cataclysm. One would think. It makes sense. It's a possibility. But yeah, I know they said that they mentioned it. They were interested in creating something of that ilk. Whether or not they're going to get it out sooner or later, I couldn't tell you. I don't believe they had a scheduled date for it. Okay, let's see what else we've got. This one is from Nathan Townsend, also known as Mecca, of Juby US, and it says this. Dear TB, what are your particular thoughts on the new raiding faction, the Ashen Verdict, for Icecrown Citadel? Do you think it's another example of easy loot? Do you support raiding factions in general, or do you think this is effectively the same as the badge system, where you get loot for doing this instance X number of times for Y loot? Well, I've always been in favour of this, honestly, ever since all the way back in Vanilla, when it was introduced in a proper manner with Zul'Gurub. Zul'Gurub did it really, really well. What raiding factions tend to do is they take some of the sting out of the RNG system in terms of loot drops. So, say you've got a, this is a perfect example for the Ashen Verdict. Say there's a really, really nice best-in-slot ring that drops, but it's quite a low drop rate. And say that the one time that it drops, you aren't there. And you're just never going to get this thing. It never drops. When it does drop, it ends up going to somebody else, and you just get increasingly frustrated. Yet you've worked just as hard as everybody else. You've done the content. It's not like you're being handed items for not doing the content. I've got complaints about doing... I hate the fact that you can do heroics and get item level 232 to 245 loot. I think that's garbage. And I still think it's garbage. Obviously, you should take advantage of it because it's there, and it's not going to disappear just because you want it to. But as far as I'm concerned, that's total garbage. In terms of the Ashen Verdict, however, you're looking at doing item level 251 to 268 or so content, and you're getting what is basically a ring. That's what's available. The Ashen Verdict Quartermaster will give you a ring, which upgrades. This is not the first time this has happened. You'll remember Mount Hyjal had a very similar system. Indeed, the ring is modelled on the Mount Hyjal rings. I can't actually even remember what they were called, but whatever the case. You'll see it Exalted, these rings have procs. And it's nice. It is, it really is. I have no problem with it, honestly. I think it's a good design decision to have a reputation faction based around a particular raid dungeon. Zul'Gurub did it very well. You got a neck piece that would constantly upgrade. That was really neat. It was just a nice little extra thing. What it says is that whenever you go into that instance, and maybe you can go a few times and get absolutely no loot, you are still making some progress. And it's nice to layer that onto, say, another system like DKP. And the reason I'm so much in favour of DKP, amongst other things, is that DKP gives you the ability to progress on a personal level, even if you don't get any loot. So say I go to Icecrown a couple of times, I get no loot whatsoever, but I still feel like I've done something and I've earned something, because I've gotten DKP. Putting Reputation in there puts an in-game system which stacks nicely on top of that, which says, you are earning Reputation. This Reputation gives you access to increasingly more powerful rings, which you don't have to pay for. So here's some really nice loot for you. The ring is best in slot, without a question. Especially once you get it up higher than Friendly. And even at Friendly, it's a god ring. I mean, just look at that thing. The Ashen Band of Destruction is absolutely ridiculous. But whatever. It's nice to have that. It makes me feel better about raiding, and I assume it makes other people feel better about raiding as well. It's not a question of giving easy loot, really. And getting to Exalted with the Ashen Verdict is not easy. You can farm and farm and farm all you like, but it's going to take you ages to get anywhere near that. I mean, I've seen people doing farming runs in there. Let's go farm some trash! Wow, that's really boring. I think I won't do that. I'm not that desperate for a ring or a pattern. It wouldn't surprise me if there are some people who are, admittedly. I've seen it happen. I assume there's people who are a lot higher than Friendly already. Maybe some people are approaching Exalted. Maybe they've already got there. Who knows? The thing is, that's their call. And it's not like they're being showered in tier 10 for the privilege. They're not getting any badges from it. They're not getting any gear drops from it. They're just getting rep. I don't see any problem with that. That's progressive content. That's what rep's for, right? That's what it's always been for. So I'm in favour of that. I also want some quests. Give me some of those. Now, last but not least, this is from Thes, and he says, this is Thes from Bloodfeather EU. I've recently come back to WoW after taking a 3-month break after being kicked from my guild for causing a wipe on General Vezax. I'd been with them for almost a year. Kinda lame, no? Well, it depends how stupid the wipe was. Anyway, after being butthurt for about 3 months, I re-rolled a Blood Elf Warlock. Oh yeah, that's great. I was emo for 3 months, so I re-rolled the most emo race in the game. And a lot of my friends play on Bloodfeather, so that's why I rolled it. My question to you is this. What other profession should I pick up along with enchanting? It seems like all the good things need a supporting profession. No. Enchanting doesn't need a supporting profession at all. That's the nice thing about it. It's got one built into it. You should pick whatever increases your DPS the most. Let's be honest. Go over to Elitist Jerks, go and have a look at the Warlock threads, and if they're anything like the Mage threads, they will tell you exactly what every profession does and rank them. Like, I looked at those at one point, and it says, right, enchanting's really good because you get the ring enchants, which you can't get anywhere else, and jewel crafting's good because you get the gems. So, okay, that's cool, that's a DPS increase. I believe there's 1 or 2 things which give a slightly higher DPS increase, but if you look at the thread, it will tell you. Seriously, just do your research, it's all that's needed. I can't give you Warlock advice. And to be honest, I don't like giving advice anyway, because Elitist Jerks does it better, Ra does it better, there's something awful, WoW threads do it better. Those are guys that actually know what they're talking about, because it's peer-reviewed content. This is why I say there's no excuse for ignorance in WoW. The information is out there. It's peer-reviewed. It's 100% correct. Just go follow what they say. Read what they say, and you'll have a better understanding of the class in general, because you'll see how they do their math and how they rank their stuff. It makes perfect sense. Go do it. Go have a look. My name is TotalBiscuit, and you are listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. I'll be right back after this music break to talk to you a little bit about Icecrown Citadel and a certain gating procedure. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Please. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. Yes, indeed, folks, you're listening to Russian Standard, Russia's #1 premium vodka, here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. That's not the name of the show. Oh, God, that is good. Seriously. My co-workers are fantastic. I went out on a night out before Christmas, and did well, I wouldn't say do something silly or foolish. I've got this high tolerance to alcohol, which is a bit of a problem, really. It was always a problem at university. I spent way too much money on alcohol and got myself to the point where I ended up in a hospital at one point. Kind of sucked, but it turns out that a couple of years of being teetotal didn't really reduce my capacity for alcohol in any way. So we went on the staff night out, and the rest of them were kind of wasted after a few pints, and I was just knocking back shots and vodka and everything, and nothing was happening, which was kind of terrible. So I got this reputation that I was a bit of a vodka drinker. I can't imagine why people would think this, but they got me a litre of Russian Standard, which is really good. So I like my co-workers at this point. I wouldn't like them if they bought me Smirnoff, because that would have shown a complete lack of taste and distinction on their part. In fact, I would have perhaps hated them forever. What an insult. It's paint strip of that stuff. This, on the other hand, is... yes. Drink this a double with a bit of lime and soda. Or make TotalBiscuit's amazing Murloc shot, which consists of a double measure, half vodka, half concentrated lime cordial. It will give you a tangy, tangy burning sensation for quite some time. Anyway, drink in moderation. And don't drink if you're underage, because that would be really bad. I will not take responsibility for such a thing. Let's get on with it. Now, Icecrown Citadel, the saviour of raiding! Not really. Honestly. So we got Saurfang down, which didn't really take an awful lot of effort. And the first time we tried Saurfang, we did him once. We tried once and then we were finishing the raid night. The way our guild works, we raid twice a week. Yeah? We went into this thinking, we want to raid but we don't want it to dominate our lives. I'm very busy. And to be honest, a lot of WoW sheen has rubbed off on me. I don't have the patience or the tolerance for raiding that I used to, which is kind of the reason that I formed this 10-man guild to begin with. I don't have tolerance for people screwing up or wasting my time, because my time is limited. So, I formed a guild where people wouldn't waste my time. And after we had a couple of slip-ups, but basically everyone that I've got in my guild right now is up to my standard, or better. They are really, really good at what they do, and I'm so happy about that. We make great progress. But we do it over 2 nights a week, yeah? We raid basically 8 hours a week, and that's it. Now, that meant that we only got 10 minutes on Saurfang the first time we went through ICC. We cleared all the stuff, here's Saurfang, tried Saurfang once, wiped it about 70% and then left it. But the next time we came back, we killed him. And it wasn't that hard. Now, Saurfang's probably the hardest fight in there. Bear in mind, of course, we're 10-man guild. I can't speak to the difficulty of 25-man at all. I have no interest in it anymore. Which is odd, because a long time ago I was extolling the virtues of it, saying, I'm not a 10-man raider. I remember catching an archive on my MP3 player, I think was from... Well, it was from late 2008. I believe it was in December 2008. And I was talking about the difference between 25 and 10-man, saying, hey, it's not my playstyle, but I respect those who do it. Well, look, shoes on the other foot now. But it's the same with 25-man. I respect 25-man's playstyle. I just don't want to do it anymore. And if 10-man's slightly easier, then so be it. I don't really care. Because 10-man raiding is just more fun for me now. That's just how I prefer to do things. And if anyone thinks that the hard mode 10-man stuff is easy, then haha, yeah, you go try Firefighter. You go try TOC 25-man 10-man Grand Crusader. Not easy. However, we did that, and then, of course, we went to speak to the guy in front of the door. And he said, it's okay, the gnomes will have this open in, 25 days. Like, oh, that's kind of sucky, isn't it? Now, I was okay with it initially, because we were working on Ulduar and TOC hard modes, which you can use the amazing raid lockout extension for. We had Ulduar extended for 3 weeks, just because we just wanted to do the stuff. We were working on Firefighter and things like that. So, we wanted to extend everything. That's a great feature, really cool. However, I also noticed something in particular that was not so great, in fact, incredibly bad, regarding the gating system, and that is that the hard modes are not available until you beat the Lich King. Now, I tried to think, to give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt, because they did quite a lot of good things and did a lot of things right in 3.3, so feeling benevolent, tried to think, well, is there a logical and reasonable game reason for gating? And in some cases there is, but in some cases there isn't. And in the case of Icecrown, there really isn't. There is no logical or reasonable reason for gating. So one might ask, TotalBiscuit, what is the reason then? Well, one could claim that this is conspiratorial, that I am seeing things that aren't there, but let me ask you if this seems reasonable to you. The reason behind the gating of Icecrown is to artificially extend the content to make sure that people keep their subscription fees. This sounds logical to you, yes? So here's the system. If Icecrown was released in its entirety, which apparently it is done, it's finished, maybe they're making some finishing touches to hard modes and the Lich King encounter, who knows? I don't believe Syndragoza got tested either. There's quite a lot of stuff that didn't get tested. Some of the hard modes, which is good, because that'll take a bit longer. So it makes me wonder, so if they're gating content that already exists, then why would they do that? Is it to allow people to, quote, catch up? Well, why does it matter? The contest is going on between guilds that are already very accomplished and have already beaten everything. I mean, if you're suggesting that the people who are going for world firsts haven't already beaten everything in Trial of the Grand Crusader, then you're living in a dream world. And the people who aren't competing for that, well, what's the rush? Honestly, I thought the idea of the content was to go through it and experience it all. It's the reason we're still doing Ulduar hard mode. It's not for the gear, it's because we want to experience it. Firefight is an absolute blast. And it's hard as hell. You know, you can't overgear that fight. It's just hard. It's a technical execution encounter. We're shooting for the 226 achievement for Algernon, for instance, in the title. Why? Because it's fun. It's a challenging encounter. That's what we're there for. We're not really there for gear anymore. So why Gate? Well, the answer is, this small top tier of guilds are going to blast ICC into oblivion. Right? One would think so. And obviously, they're going to finish ICC before anybody else does. And that includes the hard modes. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take them to do that. It took ages to do Yogg plus 0. It took quite a while to do Algernon, but again, Algernon was also gated. In a less obnoxious fashion, but it was gated. At least I can understand the gating behind Algernon. The gating behind Algernon was, you have got to learn this fight really fast, and you've got to get your execution bang on perfect. You can't screw around and just smash your head against it for hours and hours and beat it that way. Admittedly, it probably wasn't the best way to do it, but it was okay. It was reasonable. I could deal with that. This, on the other hand, doesn't serve any such purpose whatsoever. It serves the purpose of keeping guilds like Insidia and all the other guys in the game with active subscriptions, which is kind of odd, because I wonder if they've got any data that suggests that these guilds unsub when they've beaten everything. I don't know if they do. I haven't seen any evidence of that. But when you think about it, this is the last piece of major content in this expansion. This is where players tend to unsub. I mean, there's a logical reason to keep going and back and doing all the TOC hard modes and things like that, at least before ICC came out, because you want it to be fully geared for it. But what are we fully gearing for now? If ICC is going to be the last raid dungeon, what are we gearing for? We know it's all going to disappear anyway. The last 2 expansions have proved that. Burning Crusade, of course, took away all our raiding gear within a couple of levels. Wrath of the Lich King took a little longer. But one way or the other, that gear's gone. It doesn't matter anymore. All that really matters is beating the fights, achieving what you want to achieve, and then quit. So, it's logical to suggest that this gating mechanic, this gating system exists for that purpose only, surely. What other purpose could it have? Now, personally, I think that's complete garbage, but it gets worse because of the fact that the hard modes are not available until we're beating the Lich King. But we can't beat the Lich King now, and we're probably not going to get to beat the Lich King for another 2 or 3 months. So, what you're suggesting is that guilds who have already beaten Trial of the Grand Crusader, already beaten Old War Hards, are going to do what? Farm for 3 months? Farm really easy content for 3 months? Unless the normal modes are going to take a vast jump in difficulty in the next wing, which I don't think they are, honestly, and I've seen no indication to believe otherwise. Then you've got guilds who are going to be doing content that they can steamroll for 2 to 3 months. That's rubbish. That is garbage. Let's put it this way. So our guild completely demolished the first wing of ICC without any problems whatsoever. Now, we wiped, what? Once on Marigar the first time we did him and then killed him. We wiped maybe twice on Whisper, what's her face? Death Whisper. And now we don't wipe anymore. The gunship battle we did first time. Sourfang took 2 or 3 attempts and that was it. So, and we're not the best raiding guild, not even by a long shot. We're maybe above average in terms of 10 man. So, what are we to do? We just want to farm for gear? Well, here's the thing. Blizzard have already said the gear doesn't matter anymore. They changed their tune. They're handing out gear to anybody. Gear used to be the primary focus of raiding. Not anymore. It's all about the achievements and the hard modes, except we don't have access to these things. I mean, what do they expect us to do? Keep running through there week after week until they open the next wing, trying to get the stupid achievements? What's the point? No, it is a cynical attempt to raise as much cash as humanly possible by keeping people playing the game. That's all it is. And the problem with the hard modes is that I would quite like to start the hard modes. Honestly, I'd like to start Lord Marigar hard mode, Death Whisper hard mode, Airship Battle hard mode. I'd like to do that, but I can't. And no one else has that option either. And the idea that you should have to beat everything in order to start the hard modes only makes sense when the entire instance is available to begin with. I understand having to beat TOC in order to do Trial of the Grand Crusader. That makes perfect sense. That's fine. That's also a 45-minute dungeon. It's not a 12-boss dungeon that's been spread out over the course of 3 months for no other reason than to keep people there. You know what would be hilarious is that they gated the hard modes after that. It's like, the gnomes have to go through these invisible barriers for the hard modes now. 28 days till the next one. I would literally jump off a bridge. Now, what really, really concerns me is that if they're trying to stretch this content out and drip feed it to us over the course of a few months, how long are we going to have to wait until the next piece of content comes out? Because there's no other announced content. If we follow what's happened previously, then the next patch will be 4.0, which will be the prep patch for Cataclysm, which will add, well, probably not an awful lot of content, really. It'll probably give us access to a profession. It'll let us use the new talents. Stuff like that. But the question is, what are we going to use it on? What are these guilds that are going to steamroll over this content going to use that kind of thing on? What's the point? And indeed, if we follow on and have a look at when Cataclysm is going to come out, would anyone predict that Cataclysm is going to come out before August? Because I don't believe that. None of the retailers believe that either. Admittedly, they don't have a launch date, but they're guessing August, September. Now, that seems reasonable. And if you look at the 2-year development cycle, you'd be looking at November. But then again, they've had a lot more funding, they've got a lot more money. Surely they can afford to develop quicker. I don't know. And indeed, as we saw with Wrath of the Lich King, it's entirely possible that they were developing with a smaller team. There's less content, after all. And that does concern me. So that's 7-8 months without a new raid dungeon. That's, what, the longest we've ever waited? Since vanilla? Indeed, didn't even Blackwing Lair come out 8 months after launch? Possibly less than that? That's bad. Now, I think this strategy is going to shoot them in the foot, honestly. I think it's going to come back to bite them in the ass. Because if you're going to try and stretch out what is maybe a month to 2 months worth of content over the course of 8, people are going to notice. And they're going to unsub. Because, hey, who cares about getting gear when it's all going to be obsolete anyway? It shows a lack of understanding of how the player base thinks and operates. And indeed, it's little more than a cynical cash grab. It's pretty pathetic, to be honest, when you think about it. It also shows a profound lack of confidence. The developers don't think that this content is going to stand up. And surely they can't be doing this for the top 20 guilds. This makes me think that this content isn't going to stand up to a significant chunk of the raiding player base. Because you don't make financial decisions based on 150 to 200 subscribers. You make it based on thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands. Now that scares me. It really does. You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. I've got some no-cake news for you. I'll be back after this to talk about looking for group system. Is it strict enough? We shall see. Enjoy. Live from the Blue Please Tower, high up in the Storm Peaks, it's Nubcake News with award-winning anchor TotalBiscuit, bringing you the news that matters, regardless of your own misguided beliefs. Welcome to this week's edition of Nubcake News. Coming up later in the program, a special report on some guy that wiped in Utgard Keep. The nation laughs. But first, an obligatory human interest story. This is a tale of racism, sexism, and blatant bourgeois discrimination. I tell this tale so that it may be as a rallying cry to the downtrodden masses. That they will rise up and overthrow their raiding masters. I want equality for all. So let me speak to you for just a moment. She's got a trial and it seems to me she only got in 'cause she's a tree. But I deserve to get into this raiding guild. My decay is a complete disgrace. I'm willing to hand vendor mace, but if I pay my sub, I shouldn't have to be still. Mo, I won't complain and whine. Mo, complain and whine. Why should I have to reapply? This guild is really lame. They said my application lied, but kept them entertained. They dared to laugh at my vendor mace. I must admit I cried. And then when I asked them to explain, they told me to read a guide. Oh, I won't complain and whine. I won't complain and whine. Complain and whine. Complain and whine. Complain and whine. Oh yeah, yeah. Complain and whine. Forums.wow-europe.com. Post new thread. Subject line, elitism. Blizz, please respond. I have been subject to elitist discrimination. I pay my $15 a month, and I have the writ to see all the content with any guild I choose. How dare those arrogant bastards reject my application just because I'm wearing questing greens. Ban this entire guild at once, or I will cancel my subscription. We pay your wages. K, thanks, bye. Yes, that'll do it. That'll show them. Oh, they dare reject my application, do they, huh? They've seen nothing yet. They will rue the day that they set eyes upon my two-handed vendor mace. Oh, they will. Where do I go? Where do I go now? Where do I go? Oh, where do I go? Oh, where do I go now? Oh, where do I go? Oh, where do I go now? Where do I go now? Where do I go? Whoa, where do I go now? Oh, where do I go? Where do I go now? Where do I go? Whoa, where do I go now? And whine, complain, and whine. So yeah, I'm pretty quiet on Vent, you know.
kinda laid back.
Oh my god, you noobs! DPS the hands!
Just like to chill out, kick back, relax, raid with my friends. No worries, no stress.
How is that even possible? Are you 7 different shades of stupid? Move out of the fire!
It's important to make sure my orders come through loud and clear. I'm a bit, well, shy. I'm not particularly loud or anything. My last event server was really poor quality.
Tank it, for heaven's sakes! Tank it! How can you be so monumentally freaking terrible?
Well, I discovered UGT Ventrilo servers. Amazing quality, great prices, and they're so reliable. It was perfect in every way. I mean, I was a pretty calm guy before, and now I've got even less reasons to worry.
Why? Why do I raid with you people?
Why not get one of your own? UGTservers.com. That's UGTservers.com. You'll be glad that you did. It's really helped me find my zen, you know?
Yes, indeed, folks, you are listening to New Please. Yes, the New Year's Blue Please with myself, TotalBiscuit. And yes, I'm getting slightly merry now. Like, here's a question for you. How many shots of vodka do you think the TotalBiscuit drank during that song in order to make it sound bearable? If you answered 13, you would be correct. I'm, of course, lying. That would be ridiculous. One does not drink Russian Standard at that speed. You're doing it wrong. You savour it, because it is delicious. It's not paint stripper. I remember using... Let's not break that glass. Bad idea. I remember using paint stripper vodka at one point. As does Basics vodka. You know what terrifies me? It terrifies me that Asda would have something called Basics vodka. Or was it, what, Smart Price vodka? I'm sure it's Tesco Basics, isn't it? That was it. Yeah, I got a bottle of this stuff. It's like, since when was vodka a basic form of sustenance? When was that a basic essential beyond, say, I don't know, Eastern Russia? Let's be honest here. I don't really think that goes in the basket with stuff like toilet paper and milk and bread as basic essentials. But I put it in jellies, actually. It was very good. It was delicious. And incredibly intoxicating. It also has nothing to do with World of Warcraft, so let's talk about that, shall we? We could do an entire show on my vodka jelly and the results of it. Oh dear, that was an interesting evening. Right, so, look at your group system. We talked a little bit about it last show, and I generally extolled my praise for the system. Now that I've had a couple of weeks to decide that I don't like it, yeah, that's not true. I still like it. I think it's pretty cool, but there are issues coming up with it. And indeed, the illusion of choice is going to cover some of that with your bad pug experiences. But I'd like to talk about mine a little bit and suggest some ways that the LFG system could be improved. The problem with doing things that are sensible, such as improving the LFG system to increase the standards required for certain things, is that it is met by the unwashed populistic... Is populistic even a word? Let's try populist. Let's go with that. There's a populist opinion, that is held by the vocal minority of WoW players. Very loud vocal minority. That anything whatsoever that requires the enforcement of any kind of standards is elitist. It is arrogant. You find many threads on this. I don't know if the American forums have this issue, but the Europeans certainly do. It's probably because we have a lot more bleeding hearts on the European forums than you do in America. For instance, in Europe, we don't celebrate success, and we don't hold it on a pedestal. Success is bad, because it makes everyone else look bad. If someone's like, hey, we've done really well, then the first thing that we try and do is tear them down. It's a horrendous social problem. This goes beyond World of Warcraft into basically anything. Oh, that guy's successful, tear him down. I know there's a lot of anti-intellectualism flying around the US, but it also exists in the UK and in Europe as well. It's becoming a general Western problem. Whereas, of course, in Asian countries, it's less of an issue. And indeed, sometimes the opposite. People are pushed to succeed. They have to strive. Not in Western societies. Now, sadly, this is translated into World of Warcraft and has become something of a blight. For instance, a guild that has a stringent application process will be mocked on the forums. Now, while I made a little satirical remark in that song, unfortunately that has happened before. I'm not kidding. Obviously not with the vendor mace, but I'm sure someone has been rejected from a guild for having that level of gear. It comes down to the fact that there is a massive, massive entitlement problem in World of Warcraft right now. And it's partially Blizzard's fault. And it's carrying over to everything, including the looking for group system. You recall that I mentioned that there was a massive thread saying that it was unfair that there were any gear restrictions whatsoever on the random LFG system. And of course, that's garbage. Honestly, it's absolute garbage. The level of gear that you actually need to get into the instances is so incredibly low. It really is. It's a joke. I mean, you can be wearing some greens and you can still get in there. You know, some craftable blues, stuff like that. A couple of BOE item level 200 epics and you're in there. Now, there's obviously a little bit of a higher restriction on the ICC instances because they're a little bit harder. Halls of Reflection specifically requires a certain level of DPS. But otherwise, it's really very easy to attain that level. But of course, that was viewed as elitist! How dare you, Blizzard, enforce what is basically gear score? How dare you? And indeed, it upset so many people that Blizzard had actually turned around and legitimized gear score. Now, I've never experienced the bad end of gear score. One thing, because I like to keep my gear relatively good for the content I'm doing. And if it's not good enough, I'll do level-appropriate content to make sure that it is. And of course, I raid and I group as part of a guild, which is what you're supposed to do. Wrath's become this expansion where pugging is apparently absolutely fine. And yeah, okay, they have put in facilities to allow easier pugging. That does not mean that that's what they want you to do. You should be able to tell that from the random LFG system. You can do the random LFG system using, yes, you guessed it, 5 guildies, and you'll still get the bonus badges. So obviously, that's an optimal way to do it, because it's faster, you get in instantly, and you're grouping with people that you know are competent and aren't going to suck. So Blizzard obviously wants that to happen. Cataclysm, yet another example. Making guilds stronger, the guild leveling system. The ability to put on a guild tax, things like that. Expanding the guild system to make it a more attractive option. Because guilds are the best way to do it. It's like the whole family values thing, you know? A nice stable family is a great environment to raise a kid. It's true. If you have a stable organisation backing you up and a stable group of people, then you will progress further and you will achieve more. And of course, it's a great social environment. When you log on and you see the same people day in, day out, and it's like, hey, it's friends, hang around on vent, be nice to people. I don't have to be unpleasant to people in my guild because they're not unpleasant people, and I know they're not stupid. When interacting with people outside of my guild, it's a different story, because they often are stupid, and they often are unpleasant, difficult to get along with. Guilds are a good thing. Now, the problem with this entitlement thing, and the pushing back, this populist rebellion, as it were, that gives it a little bit more credit than it's due. Basically, it's a bunch of whining, entitled, bleeding heart casuals on the forums. I'd hardly call it a rebellion. The problem with that is that Blizzard get the impression that it would be a bad idea to restrict people any further in terms of the LFG system. However, there are a bunch of issues. The biggest problem I see right now is not the gear score thing. Yeah? That's not the biggest issue. Admittedly, I would like to see it a little bit stricter, but not by much. It's okay. It's pretty solid. The problem, and this is something that you cannot have some automated checker deal with, is the fact that some people are just going to suck regardless of what gear they're in. And we shouldn't have to put up with that. I gave you the example earlier, the true story, not 2 days ago now, of the guy doing 32 DPS. He's not the only hopeless person I've seen. We had a PvP tank, for instance. He was actually bragging about his PvP score. Yeah, he was the worst tank I have ever seen. Seriously, I pulled aggro off him on the main target with 40% threat reduction, and I wasn't even trying. This guy had good gear. 226 to 232. Perfectly capable of tanking Utgard Keep Heroic. And yet I pulled aggro off him. I gave him ample time. And you know what he said? Oh, well, I like to sunder lots of things. I looked on the main target. Like, no sunder at all. You can't be serious. Really? I mean, I DPS pretty hard. And people in my guild will attest to this. I broke the 10k barrier in Violet Hold. It was a good day. But I wasn't even trying. I mean, it wasn't even a great group for me. There were no beneficial group buffs. I mean, we had a shaman in there that was putting down melee totems, so it's not like he was helping me. I was DPSing in a normal manner with my big threat reduction and everything like that, but I managed to pull aggro on a mob? Are you serious? Pulling aggro on mobs on AoE as well when I give them 10 to 15 seconds to sort it out. And again, Arcane Explosion, not a great AoE. Big threat reduction on that as well.